What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And today it's another mock draft. I'm back at it. Just got back from a nice long road trip to the Meadowlands to watch the Giants beat the Washington Commanders. They made more of it than they needed to. I'll just say that. That game could have easily been 31-7. Should have been a blowout victory. They dominated that game. Little goofy mistakes. Kayvon Thibodeau, whatever. But it got me back in the mood to do this mock draft stuff again. Kind of wanted to let the season sort of settle in a bit before I got into doing more of these, so it becomes a little bit less repetitive. At least that's what I hope. And one of the big things I saw is that the Bears are in a great situation to yet again trade the number one pick. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trading the number one pick for the Bears again, second straight year. And here's the trade. And I did use the template for the pick trade last year because they're going back just about the same amount of distance, but maybe getting a bit of a better player in return. And here it is. It's the Raiders coming up to number one. They're going to get number one and a 5th round pick in 2025. Chicago moves back to 11, gets 42, a 1st round pick in 2025, a 4th round pick in 2025, and disgruntled wide receiver Davante Adams. Hey, Bears fans. And yes, this does mean in this mock, spoiler alert, because you are going to see who I do give them with that 11th pick, because I'm going to show you Bears fans what this trade means for what they've done in turning the 1st overall pick in 2023 into a plethora of great talent and more talent to be revealed at a later date. So here's what they turned the 2023 1st overall pick into. Wide receiver DJ Moore, offensive tackle Darnell Wright, cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, a 4th round pick in 2024 that they get from the Eagles for moving back the one spot from 9 to 10. They get a 2nd round pick in 2025, which was part of the initial trade. Then you take into account my trade. They get wide receiver Davante Adams, cornerback Kalen King, spoiler alert, and a 1st and 4th in 2025. Guys, what an amazing, what was his name? Ryan Poles? Dude, GM of the year. GM of the century. You're doing great work. Team still stinks, but you're doing great work. And now maybe this leads you ride it out with Justin Fields for one more season. Just one more year, guys. That's all you need. One more year, and guess what? If it doesn't work out, you are in prime position to trade up to number one and still have an amazing roster to be putting in a rookie quarterback into, like a Shedeur Sanders perhaps, because you'll have 2 1st round picks, you'll have 2 2nd round picks to be able to move up in that draft. So it's a great position to be in. But let's get to the actual picks, and we'll discuss more as we go along. So of course the Raiders are moving up to get Caleb Williams with the number one pick in the draft, put him right into that offense, and hopefully if Josh McDaniels still even has a job, which he probably will. The Raiders are kind of overachieving right now, a little bit, at least by my standard. It'll be interesting to see how they close out the year. That leaves Arizona to take Marvin Harrison Jr., to take the best player available on the board. I think putting him in there with Kyler Murray is going to make that team so much better. Give him what you wanted long-term out of DeAndre Hopkins that you just apparently couldn't keep him around for. This is a really great place for him to end up. Comes in wide receiver 1 right away. I would expect a Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle level production in his rookie year, Justin Jefferson type production. The Bears, with the pick that they actually own themselves, are going to take Jared Verse, the edge rusher out of Florida State. Take the best edge rusher on the board, whoever that may be. For me, it's Jared Verse. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears find a way to trade back again, maybe for a team looking to get Drake May, like you see the Patriots there at number 6 do, maybe to jump ahead of the Giants, who I personally don't think, I was at the game, I don't think the Giants are going to take a quarterback. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry would be the perfect pick for them, because I do think that the issues that the Giants need to be fixed right away, the most glaring issues, can't be fixed with a rookie anyway. You can't fix an offensive line with rookies. You need to have, in my opinion, you need to use what you have now in Daniel Jones with this $40 million a year. It's really his last year to figure out what you want to do with him. And then if it all fails and you're in a position next year where if you're picking this high, you can move up to number one maybe a little bit more comfortably. And this replaces Adoree Jackson, who's injured right now, most likely won't be with the team next year. You can put in Kool-Aid McKinstry in there with Deonte Banks, who's having a fantastic rookie season, very quietly under the radar because he did just get his first interception on Sunday, but he's quietly had a shutdown year against some really, really quality receivers when he's gone one-on-one with them. In between those picks, Denver goes Olu Fashanu. Looks like Garrett Bowles is probably going to be somebody that they're going to move on from. So, what do you do here? You're stuck with Russell Wilson, so you're not going to really take Drake May, I wouldn't think. So why not just go and build a pick on the offensive line? The offensive line, they did some good free agency movements for sure. And I think with Garrett Bowles potentially leaving, it opens up that spot, the left tackle, and then you can plug and play Olu Fashanu there at left tackle. It's going to be obviously a bit of a downgrade, but you're hoping that for the long-term future of this team that you've built a pretty good group there up front. Drake May, of course, going to the Patriots, like we said. Green Bay goes Joe Alt. This is your David Bakhtiari replacement here. Get a franchise guy in at that position. You got pretty good offensive line with some pretty good pieces that I actually really like outside of that. But Bakhtiari just being done for the last couple of years has really shown how much that hurts. So you want to get a true long-term answer in there. And if Jordan Love's the guy, you give him another year to sort of figure that out. Then the Chargers, they go Jerzon Newton, Johnny Newton, whatever you want to call him, interior defensive lineman in Illinois. This is an essential pick for a team like the Chargers, who have drastically regressed over the years in terms of that interior defensive line play. And I think getting a guy like Newton in there who could be a 3-down interior guy will just, I think, will immediately improve the overall defense. You got Tuli Tuipulotu, who's sort of like a hybrid inside-out type of a player, to go with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who are the veterans there. Maybe Khalil Mack is gone next year. Don't really know about that yet, but I think that building in the trenches for this team like Denver, like the Chargers, especially in that division that they're in with Kansas City, the Raiders just got a quarterback there, a franchise quarterback who you assume is going to come in and at least be a top 20 quarterback right away. You want to be prepared to battle some of these offenses and defensive fronts. Now here's Tennessee, and I'm going with Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. It's just a tough spot for them to be in. I probably would have liked Johnny Newton there. Maybe they can go edge rusher, but I think them getting in Brock Bowers, considering the rest of the team that they're building around there, you got Will Levis, who's you're anticipating will probably be the starter next year. I like getting him a guy like Brock Bowers, who can be a complete tight end with, maybe you retain DeAndre Hopkins with Treylon Burks out there. Do you retain Derrick Henry? You could have a sneaky good offense next year. You maybe bring in a veteran on the offensive line to help that out, but you could be sneaky good on offense. Then the Saints here, Cooper DeJean, defensive back, safety / corner. You just need a guy out there in that secondary, I think, that can make plays. I think the Saints would really like him. Talked about Kalen King coming in and earlier, spoiled that one, but I like the idea of you got Kalen King, you got Tyreek Stevenson to build long-term around. Then, it leaves you an option with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon in particular. Can you move Kyler Gordon to safety? Perhaps. And then Eddie Jackson gets moved on from the veteran, who hasn't really been the top player that he was in the past. At least not at the value of what his contract potentially could end up becoming for you. So I think it creates a lot of options there, and you can never have enough good quality defensive backs to, mix in with matchups and everything. You could have a situation where you'll have all four of them on the field likely anyway, especially against a team like Detroit who's going to spread it out, a team like Minnesota who's going to want to spread it out as well. Speaking of Minnesota, Dallas Turner. I liked Kalen King potentially in that spot, but with him already off the board, Cooper DeJean would have been another one I would have considered, but with those two guys off the board, I like getting Dallas Turner, edge rusher. You don't know what that edge room is even going to look like for this team come next year. Is Danielle Hunter going to stick around? We don't know. So I think that getting in, replenishing that edge is a really important move for them. And then same thing with Indianapolis. Their offensive line coming into this year, people probably would have went they need an offensive lineman. Their offensive line seemingly has bounced back here. So create a situation to get the ball back in your offense's hands. They got run all over by Cleveland, controversial calls at the end of the game notwithstanding. So get a guy who could play opposite of, what's his name? Kwity Paye in Chop Robinson. They got 2 quality edge rushers, and then maybe if Kwity Paye never actually becomes who you were hoping, you can move on from him much more comfortably, and that Chop Robinson maybe take that spot. Washington goes J.C. Latham. Now, I saw it firsthand. My New York Giants came into that game with 5 sacks in total this year, not creating a lot of turnovers outside of that game against Miami, and they dominated this Washington offense. They were so terrible, and they allowed 6 sacks, which was more than the Giants had gotten all year combined up to that point. So you got to get some tackle help in there. Get something. Take the best offensive lineman you can find on the board, and for me, that would be J.C. Latham. Going on to the Rams, happy surprise, Byron Young at the edge position there, the rookie. Why not get him a partner in a 3-4 outside linebacker type like Leatu Latu, who can also drop back into coverage if you need him to. So you get a good, true 3-4 outside linebacker in Latu here. You hope that his injury history is sort of calmed down like we saw with Jalen Phillips, who's established himself as one of the top edge rushers now. So you take that chance here, I think, if you're the Rams. A team that I think is also overachieving a little bit and maybe kind of got robbed against Pittsburgh. And then you got Nate Wiggins going to Arizona. This is the Houston pick. So you get a cornerback help there, which I think that they need as well. You need to get some high-level corners. It's probably a little bit early for a guy like Nate Wiggins, but without being trading down and everything, this Nate Wiggins pick feels an awful lot like Emmanuel Forbes last year, where it's probably going to be too early for him. But depending on how teams have guys ranked, you might have to get him now and not risk dropping down 4, 5, 6, 7 spots and then missing out on him. Now we got the New York Jets, and I got them going with Keon Coleman, the wide receiver. There's a bit of a run of wide receivers here in the second half of this first round. But it starts with Keon Coleman. You pair him up with Garrett Wilson. Then you got Allen Lazard. They traded McCole Hardman. You got Randall Cobb, will probably come back with Aaron Rodgers playing a full year. And it's kind of the same situation. The other concerns on the offense, get veterans. Get veterans who are maybe willing to play for a little bit less to come and play for Aaron Rodgers and a team that could very likely contend for a Super Bowl with a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And you get Aaron Rodgers a nice little weapon out there committing to him being your guy. And it's a different type of receiver than what you have in Garrett Wilson, so I think he'd be a really good complement out there. And he's not going to be required to come out and be a wide receiver 1 right away. You got that in Garrett Wilson, and that could make Keon Coleman a really sneaky, great wide receiver 2 option. Even a wide receiver 3 option. We know about Rodgers and Allen Lazard's chemistry. So it really does make this Jets wide receiver group a lot better, and I think that they weren't nearly as strong as people thought that they were, especially once Aaron Rodgers was no longer in the picture. Then we got the Cincinnati Bengals, Emeka Egbuka. He seems to be the most volatile draft pick right now. I've seen him go in the top 10, seen him go outside the top 20. I think this is a good spot for him right here. You pair him up with Jamar Chase, and then it's either T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd, depending on who you got, who you retain. You might not be able to retain T. Higgins, but even if you can, that means Tyler Boyd's going to have to go. So you're going to have to get a third wide receiver in there, and you want to give Joe Burrow the best opportunity to win. I think that you could also see the guy that I got going next, Armarius Mims, go in that spot. I think you could logically flip Egbuka and Mims in these spots, and I think that both teams would be extremely happy with getting that pick. I think that the Bucs could be sitting there going we'll take Coleman, we'll take Egbuka, or we'll take Armarius Mims, whichever one is there, and we're going to get quality. And I think this allows, you put Mims and Tristan Wirfs now as your bookend tackles, Cody Mock there on the inside, and I think you got a good little group there to continue building off a team, again, overachieving here. Then you got Atlanta, Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU. I like that pick going in there, complements Drake London and Kyle Pitts, gets you a different type of receiver out there. Speaking of help, though, on the offense, Roma Dunze from Washington, wide receiver, going to Buffalo. It is a nightmare out there sometimes for Josh Allen. It's sort of like it's Stephon Diggs or bust. So, maybe get some veteran running back help out there. There's always a veteran running back that seems to come available, and I think that that's something they need to invest in the offseason. Don't necessarily worry about getting a guy in the second round, they can still draft a guy, but you want to get a guy who you know is going to be a true number one running back for you, and they just don't have that, and that really puts a lot of pressure on Josh Allen to do everything. The Cowboys, they go Talisi Fuaga, the guard from Oregon State. I think he's going to fly up draft boards. He already is this year. I think he's a guy that finds himself in the first round. And I think the Cowboys is the perfect spot for him. Tyron Smith is out. Tyler Smith goes and plays left tackle full time. And Fuaga goes in and plays left guard. And you've got a really smooth transition on that offensive line where I don't think you're going to lose a whole lot. Tyron Smith can't stay healthy consistently. Tyler Smith is, I think, right now the highest graded offensive lineman in the NFL. I'd have to go fact check that, but he was for a while at least. So you got some really good talent there. Terrence Steele's overperforming, and you got the veteran Zach Martin there. And if Tyler Biadasz at center is your worst offensive lineman, that's an amazing spot to be in. Here's Pittsburgh. I'm going Cameron Kinchens, the safety from Miami. It's a tough pick, man. They're in a tough spot. I wouldn't be surprised if they went linebacker, but I thought maybe it was a little too early for linebacker here. You're still waiting for a linebacker to really break out, and that's probably not going to happen until we get to the actual draft process, like workouts and combine and everything like that, where the linebackers really get to separate themselves from each other. So I think Cameron Kinchens is a nice safe pick for them to go, and he pairs up with Minka Fitzpatrick really well at the safety position. Then you got Mason Smith. This is the pick that Houston got in the Deshaun Watson trade. I think it's the last pick from that trade. And they get Mason Smith, interior defensive lineman. He comes in. He's immediately a 3-down interior guy for you would hope. They got a lot of veterans on short-term deals. So you can still build a really good interior group, and it keeps DeMeco Ryans' clear goals going forward here, where, you got Will Anderson on the outside. Now you draft a guy, Mason Smith, and you got a good little inside-out combination there of young players that he can build around, and he's getting some good play out of his linebackers. And I think that Houston continuing to build that defense, and C.J. Stroud playing much better than I thought he would, at least early on, kind of eating my words on him. But the system, again, really working well for him. He fits in perfectly, it seems. So I expect onward and upwards for Houston, and them strategically using these high-level draft capital picks on these key position groups. Now they use it on quarterback, and now use it on the defensive line, and then probably I'd see a second-round pick perhaps on the offensive line, depending on how that all shapes out in free agency. So now coming down here, we got Seattle going JT Tuimoloau, edge out of Ohio State, really outside of that Giants game where the Giants do have like the worst offensive line of all time, outside of probably Washington's. Seattle hasn't got much of a pass rush, so it's not a bad position group to just continue throwing some high-level draft capital at. Now you got Boya Mafe, you got who's the guy they took last year? Why am I blanking? Derek Hall, and now JT Tuimoloau, and you got 3 guys in there that you got to make something work there. Uchenna Nwosu, I think, just got injured for the season. He probably won't stick around next year. So you got to have a nice little group there. You also have who else did they take? Zach Harrison? They might have. I could be wrong about that. But you want to have... This is a really good position to just throw draft capital at, where it makes a lot of sense. And you don't feel like you're wasting draft capital. Because now, if you end up with 3 really good guys, with 2 second-round picks and a first-round pick, how great is that? Even if you end up with just 2 of the 3 working out, that's still really good. That's really good use of your draft capital. Speaking of really good use of the draft capital, the 49ers, I got them taking Patrick Paul, offensive tackle out of Houston. They need answers, man, on this offensive line. Because sometimes the offensive line just doesn't look great at all. It was the perfect example, I would say, was against Cleveland. You need talent out there. Then we got Jacksonville. I'm going Leonard Taylor. I think they're going to go with a defensive lineman here, whether it's an edge guy or whether it's an interior guy. I think the best player on the board right now for me was Leonard Taylor. So that's why I went him. I think Braylon Trice has a real opportunity during the draft process to maybe wow some people. So I would keep an eye on him. And then there's always going to be some like edge guy who blows people away with his athleticism that is going to seduce a general manager. So that could be that situation here as well. Kalen Carson, cornerback, Wake Forest, sneaks into the first round here for Baltimore, just because I think that they need to start throwing some draft capital at the cornerback room. Then we got Detroit. Troy Franklin, I think, is somebody who can potentially sneak into the first round also. I think, really these two picks, Carson and Franklin, are two guys who I think can really sneak into the first round here because teams will wow them. We know Detroit's not opposed to reaching for draft picks, and frankly, that reaching has worked out in a couple of examples here with Jack Campbell and Sam Laporta in particular. So I don't think they're opposed to it. They're going to stick to their board. Then we got Miami going Kingsley Suamatia, offensive tackle, BYU. Please draft offensive lineman in the first round that work. Keep throwing it out there. Protect Tua. Your offense works great. Imagine if he had more time, you could really do some even more damage than what you're already doing. I think the defense is pretty well set. And you can throw some maybe more traitsy guys in there that can be depth pieces early on in their careers anyway, because you're not really searching for a lot of starters on the defense at the moment. But the Kansas City Chiefs are searching for starters on the defense, particularly on the defensive tackle position. Chris Jenkins, interior defensive lineman, Michigan. Even if you keep Chris Jones, you need a true number 2 answer here. And if Chris Jones is gone, then you definitely need to go defensive tackle here. If not, maybe trade up to make sure you get one. So that's why I got Chris Jones here going to Kansas City. And then the fun pick of the draft. Last year when Joey Porter Jr. went to Pittsburgh, it was just the chef's kiss of picks. So why not do the equivalent to that this year and get Eagles legend Jeremiah Trotter's son, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., from Clemson here to the Philadelphia Eagles. He comes in, he fills a position of need right out the gate. I think they're going to be looking for a starting linebacker to go to pair up with Nakobe Dean. They've really solved a lot of their long-term cornerback and defensive line. That sort of replacement level, replenishing the depth at those positions. They're really deep there, so veterans can come out. They're going to have guys ready to go at all those position groups already. So why not do this? Why not? Maybe you go safety with Tyler Newman, but they just traded for Kevin Byard. So, is Kevin Byard gonna stay there for long term? Who knows? Or is that going to be like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson thing? Still don't know about that, but you did just trade for Kevin Byard. Let's assume they keep him. They find a way to keep him. Why not do this? Why not? There's really a bunch of wide receivers already off the board, so you're sticking with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and maybe Julio Jones comes back. Who knows? You got a deep running back room. You got your quarterback. You got some depth on the offensive line you've drafted ahead of time on. Really, the linebacker position is the only one you need. So it's a 32nd pick. Take the legend's son. Make your fan base extremely happy. This would be the biggest ovation probably of the night for any fan base, would be Jeremiah Trotter Jr. going to the Eagles. So let's do it. I hate the Eagles, but what a nice moment. And there it is, my most up-to-date 2024 NFL mock draft. I hope I've been saying 2024, not 2023 this whole time. It's still the year 2023, but it's the 2024 mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bears fans, what do you think? Raiders fans, what do you think? And pretty much everyone else, what do you think I did with your team? Some, not so exciting picks in there, obviously. Not everyone's going to have the most exciting draft, but I hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. And like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I will be back with the next video next time.